Thank you. My name is Raywat Deonandan. I'm an epidemiologist and currently an associate professor in the Interdisciplinary School of Health Sciences. And the question is a big one, the journey to becoming the research chair. And I interpret that as, what is my journey to becoming a university level educator? So casting my memory way back into my youth decades ago, I actually got a teaching degree at one point, and I taught briefly in public school, which was terrifying, absolutely terrifying, because I was in my 20s and the students were that much younger than me. And so it felt very strange being in an in loco parentis situation where I'm in the place of parents, really. And so the need to instill discipline, controlling movements, that I was not good at. And so teaching terrified me for many years after that. When I eventually became a professor, the teaching was the part that, again, terrified me the most. I was competent as a researcher, I was fine doing the other stuff, but getting into the classroom was scary. But I discovered that, in fact, when you're no longer in loco parentis, when you're dealing with other adults, it's actually kind of fun. And I discovered that, as a result, I could share my personal characteristics, my personality with the students. I could share my personal life. I could swear. I can tell them aspects of what I did last night without having to offend them or their parents. And I discovered I could treat it like stand-up comedy a little bit. Now, I've tried stand-up comedy. I'm not very good at it. But now I discovered that a poor stand-up comic is actually a fairly adequate university teacher. As a result, I realized, oh my goodness, this is actually a lot of fun and something I could sink my teeth into. And in that first year of being a university teacher here at uOttawa, I went to an orientation session where I saw the incoming research chair in university teaching give a presentation. And it dawned on me, I could do that. That looks like fun. That looks interesting. That looks something meaningful that I could actually aspire to one day. And here I am. Now, that's a long story. The short story is that I think teaching is critical. I think university teaching is critical. And more importantly, I think that learning to be a good teacher and collecting evidence in a scientific manner and distilling that evidence into more directives for proper, more effective teaching, I think, should be a calling for every university and, frankly, every professor. Long story, that's my answer. So my project has to do with artificial intelligence. Now you could say maybe we need more of the non-artificial kind of intelligence, but right now we're stuck with the growth of artificial intelligence, which terrifies everybody. It terrifies me. In particular, things like ChatGPT, a large language module, LLM, is terrifying for educators for all the wrong reasons. We see it as an avenue towards fraud, and that's exactly what we're seeing in the high school level and percolating more and more at the undergraduate level across all universities in the Western world, is ChatGPT is being used to cheat, depending on how you define cheating. So this runs in parallel to another one of my passions, which is writing. For many years now, I've seen a decline in the quality and enthusiasm around student writing. And it struck me that now that ChatGPT and other LLMs are replacing student writing or being used to allow students to cheat in their writing, this is an opportunity to look at whether or not we can use this technology to make writing better, to make better writers out of our students. How? By harnessing enthusiasm. So the theory is that if we can make it fun, if we can make using the technology fun and control its use, reduce it down to a tool rather than simply a platform for developing writing content, then maybe we could reinstill the love of writing in students and make them better writers at the end of the day. So my project, frankly, is something resembling a randomized control trial. It's more of a quasi-experiment. We have some students who are using ChatGPT and similar AIs to undertake a writing assignment, and some students who aren't. And we're measuring how their enthusiasm changes and whether or not they end up as better writers at the end of the day. That's the long story. The even longer story is that I'm hoping that this approach compels us to have a more streamlined and realistic vision for the role of technology in teaching. Because we're looking down the barrel of dramatic changes in society as a result of these new technologies, we're going to have to reimagine what the university looks like. And this is our first step in doing so. student well-being and student engagement. And those really are the two things we care about most when we're teaching at the university level. Engagement is one of the easier things to combat here, or to approach, or to address. By using these technologies, these artificial intelligence technologies, assuming we can make them fun, assuming we can present them as an avenue to embracing a skill set that many students perceive as being troublesome and painful, then that will increase engagement. Right? If you perceive something as being less painful, then it's automatically more fun. That's a good thing. Increased student well-being is harder. So what does well-being mean? To my mind, well-being means being well-equipped to deal with the challenges of life. And to my mind, again, the two biggest skill sets that we need to instill in our students are communication and analysis. We're pretty good at teaching analysis. Analysis can be statistical analysis, econometric analysis, qualitative analysis, just taking data and turning it into information, and turning information into wisdom. That's analysis. We really thrive in that. We're not that good at teaching communication. We require communication. We don't teach it well, at least not in my faculty, where we focus on science more so than the communication of science. So by turning our attention more to, again, how do we increase enthusiasm for writing, and therefore quality of writing, and therefore the understanding of the applications of writing, I hope to improve writing in general, and therefore communication in general, and therefore better equip and arm our students to navigate the troubles of life, to get a better job, to understand how to read a contract, to buy a house. All these little things rely upon an understanding of the written and spoken word, frankly. So that's my definition of student well-being, and that's how I hope my project will address it. Well, how do I feel about the research unit? I love them, obviously. They're critical. And they're critical because who better to look at the poly-crisis of the world of education than people who are dedicating their professional lives to studying education at the university level. Now, that's not to say they're the only people who are able to do this. We need politicians, we need community leaders, we need parents, we need learners to all be engaged in this, but we need the production of evidence as well in order to drive appropriate decision-making around university teaching and education. So the unit really brings together those who are working in this field and allows us to learn from each other. Also, I'm hoping, allows what we learn to trickle down into the wider university communities and affect actual practice and teaching. So we're in a moment of crisis. Right? So just this morning, I was talking to some colleagues about one of those crises, which is the new neurodiversity of students, different learning habits, different ways of communicating with individuals that we need to adapt and adopt. And that's something we haven't been well trained in. So that's just one little niche of the ways in which these new scholars in education and teaching can assist us. That's just a sliver. We have a whole host of challenges. We have wars percolating around the world. We have climate change. We have economic collapse. We have population pressures. We're in a time of exquisite change. And with change comes stress. And with stress comes all kinds of other challenges. Education is a foundational component to all of this. So it's critical, I think, that we get that part right so that we can empower our students and our communities to better navigate this new world of polycrisis. Well, as I mentioned, my project is around artificial intelligence and how to use it to perhaps teach better and to create a better quality of students as measured in terms of student learning habits. What I'm hoping, though, is that I'm able to start or at least contribute to a burgeoning conversation on reimagining the university. We're going to have to reimagine what fraud looks like in the wake of these new technologies. We're going to have to reimagine what the role of the university is in terms of how to prepare and students for the world and what the world expects from us. This is part of that conversation. So I anticipate that in 10, maybe fewer years, we're going to reimagine and have a different vision of the role of universities in our society. And I'm hoping my project contributes just a little bit to that conversation.